All right, everybody, we're going to continue with reading Act 1, Scene 4. We hear flourish. Flourish also is it's a different trumpet sound. And we see the king and Lennox and Malcolm and Donalbain. So we have a sort of another court scene, the king at his court. And the king says, is execution done on Cawdor or not? Those in commission yet returned. So he's like, yeah, did they go ahead and kill that Thane of Cawdor as I ordered? And Malcolm says, my liege. My liege is just another word for king or my lord. He says, they are not yet come back, but I have spoke with one that saw him die, who did report that very frankly he confessed his treasons, implored your highness pardon, and set forth a deep repentance. Nothing in his life became him like the leaving it. He died as one that had been studied in his death, to throw away the dearest thing he owed as twere a perilous trifle. That was interesting. So apparently when that Thane of Cawdor died, he confessed everything, he asked for forgiveness, and so he did a really good job dying. And that's why he says nothing in his life became him in the sense of like becoming a good person. Like he became a really good person. He really became himself when he left his life. He died as one that had been studied in his death. Like he really was good at dying. And he threw away the dearest thing he owed, like life, as it were a careless trifle. Like he died, he didn't mind. And the king says, there's no art to find the mind's construction in the face. He was a gentleman on whom I built an absolute trust. So here is this guy whom the king is saying, there's no art, there's no ability to find the way the mind is, the mind's construction, just by looking at someone's face. And what makes the king say that? Well, he was the Thane of Cawdor, this guy who just died, was a person who the king had absolute trust in. So in other words, the king is saying, there's no way to know whether you can really trust somebody. And then, ironically, he says to Macbeth, oh, worthiest cousin, as if, because now the Thane of Cawdor, the new Thane of Cawdor, Macbeth, is thinking about killing the king. So even as the king knows that he shouldn't trust people, he immediately trusts the new Thane of Cawdor. He immediately trusts Macbeth. He says, oh, worthiest cousin, the sin of my ingratitude even now was heavy on me. Like I feel bad because I'm not grateful enough for what you did for me. So he goes on, thou art so far before, that swiftest wing of recompense is slow to overtake thee. This is an interesting image. It's like an image of a bird of paying back. Recompense is paying back. So he's like, it's like an image of like, there's no way that I could pay you back fast enough because you keep on doing good things for me. Would thou hadst less deserved that the proportion both of thanks and payment might have been mine. Like I wish you had deserved less so that I could pay you enough to make it up. Only I have to say more is thy due than more than all I can pay. Like I owe you more than I could even possibly pay. All right, let me just pause it real quick. All right, sorry, just pause it for a second. Where do we leave? Macbeth says, the service and the loyalty I owe in doing it pays itself. Like, you don't have to pay me. Doing the service to you is payment enough. Your Highness's part is to receive our duties, and our duties are to your throne and state, children and servants, which do but what they should by doing everything safe toward your love and honor. Everything I've done, he says, is for you. All I'm supposed to do is to just do my duty to you. That's what's right. And I shouldn't do anything else, and you don't have to do anything for me. And so this is a really traditional statement about what you owe the king. And it's kind of ironic given that the last time we saw Macbeth, he was thinking about murdering the king. And the king says, welcome hither. Hither in Shakespeare just means here. So he's like, welcome. And he says, I have begun to plant thee. So this is another really interesting image. It's an image of farming, just like looking in the seeds of time was a sort of farming image. Now we have, I have begun to plant thee and will labor to make thee full of growing. Like I've given you something, but I'm going to give you even more. And then he says to Banquo, noble Banquo, that has no less deserved, nor must be known no less, and have done so. Like I know that you've done almost as much as Macbeth. Let me enfold thee and hold thee to my heart. Enfold is like give you a hug. So this is also a kind of stage direction for himself and Banquo. He goes to hug him, and Banquo says, there, if I grow, the harvest is your own. So it's like furthering that metaphor of uh, Banquo and Macbeth like sort of plants of the king's garden. And Banquo is saying, if I grow, then anything I make is for you. And the king says, my plenteous joys, wanton in fullness, seek to hide themselves in drops of sorrow. Sons, kinsmen fain, and you whose places are the nearest, know we will establish our estate upon our eldest Malcolm, whom we name hereafter the Prince of Cumberland, which honor must, not unaccompanied, invest him only. So what does this mean? He's saying all my joy, it's full and it's wanton in fullness. Wanton here is a very striking word. It kind of means unrestrained or profuse, as this editor says, but also it's sort of like uh, sensual, like it's feeling good. And so here we are, and he says to everybody at court, I'm going to make Malcolm the prince, who will be like officially now uh, my successor. And he says, signs of nobleness like stars shall shine on all deservers. So he's saying everybody who's noble is going to shine. And so we get this nice metaphor of nobleness shining like stars, nobleness being synonymous with being good and moral. So if you're writing about conscience, that could be an interesting image. And Macbeth says, the rest is labor which is not used for you. All myself, the harbinger, and make joyful the hearing of my wife with your approach. So humbly take thy leave. Oh, so they're going to this place, Inverness. And where is Inverness? That's where Macbeth lives. They're going to go to Macbeth's castle. And the king says, my worthy cotter, and now Macbeth gives us another aside. And in case we weren't sure whether he was still thinking about being king, he says to the audience, the Prince of Cumberland, which is the official title that Malcolm just got. That is a step on which I must fall down or else overleap. So this is an interesting image that it's like Malcolm is now a step or an impediment or like a obstacle that he either will fall down going over or jump over. For in my way it lies. Now we have a really great image. He says, stars hide your fires. And this is something you see a lot in Shakespeare, where he says something like an object like stars, and then a comma, and then a verb, hide. And that's called actually apostrophe. But you don't need to know that, but just see that he's talking to stars. He's saying, stars, hide your fires. Let not light see my black and deep desires. So here he's feeling guilty about his black and deep desires. So if you're writing about doing wrong, or if you're writing about the pursuit of power, this is a great image for you to write about. He says, the eye wink at the hand, yet let that be which the eye fears when it is done to see. This is a very strange image of something like the eye can look away from the hand doing an action so that the eye, if it feels fear, can just look back once the action's done. So he's distinguishing between looking at doing something, feeling fear, and doing the action. This image is going to be really important. And the king says, true, worthy Banquo, he is full, so valiant. So this is interesting because it feels like Banquo's been saying how good Macbeth is, and once he walks off stage, see it says exit, the king says to Banquo, yeah, he is so great. And in his commendations, I am fed. Like I feel like I ate food just in hearing how great Macbeth is, which is totally ironic because Macbeth is just talking about killing the king. He says, it is a banquet to me. Let's after him, whose care is gone before us to bid us welcome. It is a peerless kinsman, and peerless means he has no peer, like he's the best of everybody. And we hear, boom, 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 and he leaves the stage. Now we have Macbeth's wife come on. So we meet her, and this is called Lady Macbeth. And in my edition, it just says Lady, but we're going to call her Lady Macbeth. And Lady Macbeth comes on, and she's reading a letter from Macbeth. And what's the letter about? Well, obviously, it's the whole thing. He's telling his wife everything. This is a really interesting marriage because look how he's telling her the whole thing about the witches, all this stuff. He says, she's reading, they met me in the day of success. Who met him? The witches. He's telling about the witches. And when did they meet him? The day he won the battle, the day of success. And Macbeth goes on in this letter. She says, and I have learned by the perfectest report, they have more in them than mortal knowledge. Well, this is really interesting because Macbeth has totally accepted their prediction and called it perfect. Remember, the first thing he said is, hey, you imperfect speakers, but now it's perfect. He says, when I burned in desire to question them further, they made themselves air into which they vanished. Whilst I stood wrapped in the wonder of it, came missives. Missives are official emissaries. They're messengers of the king. Came missives from the king, who all hailed me Thane of Cotter, by which title before these weird sisters saluted me, and referred me to the coming on of time. With hail, king, that shalt be. This have I thought good to deliver thee, my dearest partner of greatness, that thou mightest not lose the dues of rejoicing by being ignorant of what greatness is promised thee. Lay it to thy heart and farewell. Well, this is really interesting. So he's saying that, and isn't it weird because he told the king, I'm going to go tell my wife you're coming, but he didn't tell her that those people are all coming. He just said about the witch's prediction. It's like that's all he's thinking about. And she gets really excited. She says, blameless thou art, and Cotter shalt be what thou art promised. So look how she's talking to Macbeth even though he's not on stage. She's talking to herself. What is this called again? It's called soliloquy. She's talking to Macbeth in a soliloquy. And she says, yet I do fear thy nature. It is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way. So she's like, you're going to be what you're promised. You're going to become king, but I'm worried that you're not evil enough to do it. You're too nice. You have too much of the milk of human kindness. She says, thou wouldst be great, art not without ambition, but without the illness should attend it. You don't have the sickness of ambition. So this shows, if you're writing about pursuit of power, look how much more ambitious she seems to be than him. He's having these images, it's freaking him out, but she just is like, we got to do this. And she says, what wouldst thou highly, thou wouldst thou holily. So the thing that you want to be like your greatest ambition, you have to do completely or wholly. Wouldst not play false, yet wouldst wrongly win. She's saying, you, Macbeth, you wouldn't play false, you won't lie and cheat, but you want to win. Thou wouldst have great blames, that which cries, this thou must do, if thou have it, and that which rather thou dost fear to do, that which should be undone. She's like, I'm going to get you to do the thing you fear to do. Hie thee hither. And hie in Shakespeare just means get, like get you here is what she's saying. That I may pour my spirits in thine ear. This is a great image for how a woman in Shakespeare's time can get power, because she can't really get power on her own, but look how she can convince her husband to do it. And how she's going to do it, she's going to pour her spirits in his ear. It's a really great image. I'm going to pause it for just a second. Hey guys, pause it for a second there. You'll probably hear my wife and baby a little bit at this point, and that's just going to be a function of, if this is going to work for me, a function of quarantine time. So where do we leave off? Let's leave off that I may pour my spirits in thine ear. That's here. And she's excited to get Macbeth to be more evil than he is. I'm a little worried that I'm not seeing myself. Let me go back. I'm sorry about that. I didn't have my screen on, so you can see me explain all this. Yes, so she wants to get Macbeth to come there so she can pour her spirits in his ear and chastise with the valor of my tongue all that impedes thee from the golden round. Chastise is like to provoke or prod. She wants to get him all excited with the valor, and valor is bravery. So there's that idea of overcoming fears that he has to overcome. And impede is to hold back. And what's the golden round? Well, what's round in gold? Well, that's the crown. So she's saying she's going to pour her spirits in his ear, and she's going to uh, kind of get him all excited to get away all that is holding him back from getting the crown, which fate, she says, which the crown, in other words, fate and metaphysical aid does seem to have thee crowned withal. So this crown seems to be something that fate and metaphysical aid here means like magic. Magical aid wants to have you crowned. And here comes a messenger. What is your tidings? She asks him. And he says, the king comes here tonight. And the lady's like, what? Thou art mad to say it. Is not thy master with him? Who, were it so, would have informed for preparation? So this is kind of strange how Macbeth said he was going to tell Lady Macbeth, and then he didn't tell her. He just told her about the witch's predictions. I mean, maybe this is Macbeth's messenger, and maybe this letter isn't even from Macbeth. Maybe it's the witches. I don't know. But the point is, it's a bit odd, and she's upset. Thou art mad to say it. Is not thy master with him? Isn't Macbeth here? He should have told me. And the messenger says, so please you, it is true. Our Thane is coming. Macbeth is coming. One of my fellows had the speed of him, like somebody who works for me had a speed of him, like caught up with him, who almost dead for breath had scarcely more than would make up his message. Like he didn't send that much to tell you because he was going really fast. And Lady Macbeth says, give him tending. He brings great news. And then the messenger exit, and now Lady Macbeth has another soliloquy, and this is super famous. She says, the raven, and the raven is a famous bird, famous for being a messenger of death. So she's saying the raven himself is hoarse, that croaks the fatal entrance of Duncan under my battlements, and her battlements is her castle. So she's like, the raven is calling out about how Duncan's going to come to my castle where he's going to die. So that's a cool image of a raven, like sort of croaking for Duncan to enter her castle where he's going to die. And now she speaks to some spirits. She says, come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here. Again, this is how Shakespeare, he's very oftentimes in soliloquies, he has the characters talk to all kinds of stuff. Remember, Macbeth said, stars hide your fires. And now Lady Macbeth is talking to spirits. And what kind of spirits are they? They are spirits that tend on mortal thoughts. And mortal thoughts are murderous thoughts. So she's trying to like call to some spirits that make you murderous. And what does she want them to do? She wants them to unsex her. And what does that mean? Well, what is her sex? Well, she's female, so she wants to become manly. And she wants to be filled with from the crown to the toe, top full of direst cruelty. She wants to be full of cruelty like a man, she's saying. So if you're interested in writing about the relationship between pursuit of power and gender, this is it. Because she's saying, make me a man, because as a woman, I can't be. She says, make thick my blood and stop up the access and passage to remorse. And this is an image about female parts. And the idea was that women were more remorseful because of their parts. And so she's saying, stop up the access, the passage to remorse, that no compunctious is guilty feelings, that no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose. And fell in Shakespeare means terrible. So she says, don't let any guilt shake my terrible purpose, nor keep peace between the effect in it. Come to my woman's breath and take my milk for gall. And gall is a bitter substance that comes from your liver and was thought at the time to make you do evil, to do anger. So she's saying, take milk out of my breast and make them full of evil. you murdering ministers. So those are the spirits that tend on mortal thoughts. She says, wherever in your sightless substance you wait on nature's mischief, come on. Now she talks to nighttime. She says, come thick night and pall thee in the dumbest smoke of hell. And so she's saying, come on nighttime. Pall is to cover over, and dunnest means darkest. So she's saying, come on nighttime, cover everything in the darkest smoke of hell, that my keen knife see not the wound it makes. And that's a cool image. I mean, there's so much cool imagery here. Think about the imagery of night coming and getting all dark, and the image of the spirits coming and tending on mortal thoughts and making her full of evil cruelty. Any of these are great images for you to write about and draw later on. And that her keen knife see not the wound it makes. This is a cool image, that she wants it to be so dark that her knife won't see the wound it makes. And this is a bit like what Macbeth said earlier about wanting the hand to do what the eye couldn't see. Like, you don't want to see the evil and the violence, you just want to do it so that you can get the power. That my keen knife see not the wound it makes, nor heaven peep through the blanket of the dark to cry, hold, hold. Don't let heaven cry, hold, like, or stop. In other words, make it so dark that heaven or God won't stop me from doing this evil. And here comes Macbeth, and she says, great claims, worthy Cawdor, greater than both by the all hail hereafter. And here's this word hereafter. It's a really important word in the play, and it means the future. Think about how getting power, having ambition, pursuing power is all about thinking about and trying to control the future. And that's what she's thinking about. She says, thy letters have transported me beyond the ignorant present, and I feel now the future in an instant. What a cool image of her feeling the future in an instant. And she says, my dearest love, Duncan comes here tonight. And Lady Macbeth says, when goes hence? When does he leave? And Macbeth says, tomorrow, as he proposes. But Lady Macbeth says, in a super evil way, oh, never shall sun that morrow see. Like, the sun will never see that tomorrow when he leaves. And she says, your face, my Thane, is a book. Oh, this is a cool image too, that his face is a book where men may read strange matters. Like, right now, you have a strange facial expression. To beguile the time, look like the time. Bear welcome in your eye, your hand, your tongue. Look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. This is a very important image. To beguile means to pass the time, but it also means to trick. So she's saying, to pass the time, look like the time. Pretend to kind of just be normal. Bear welcome in your eye. Pretend to be a welcome host. Look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. That's how you have to do the evil. He that's coming must be provided for, and you shall put this night's great business into my dispatch. Like, we're going to have a big party. That's what she means by be provided for, and you let me take care of it, which shall to all our nights and days to come give solely sovereign sway and masterdom. Oh, she's not just talking about providing for him, like giving him a party. She's saying, we're going to give him a party, and then we're going to kill him, and then we'll have sovereign sway. Sovereign means powerful. And Macbeth's like, we'll talk about this later. We will speak further. And she says, only look up clear. To alter favor ever is to fear. Just see clearly. Don't alter. Leave all the rest to me. And that's how scene 5 ends. And I'm going to take a pause here, and then I'll do scene 6 and 7.